Hi, I'm Sophie from Encodian, and today I'm taking you through one of Flowr's new AI actions called Process Invoice. This action will extract the key information from your invoice documents, and it's pre-trained, so all you need to do is provide the document and the action will do the rest. So let's take a look at the solution today. So for the solution today, I have an invoice mailbox where all new invoices are sent to. When a new invoice email arrives, I have a Power Automate that gets triggered and saves the document to this SharePoint library that we see in front of us here. So we can see that the invoice document gets saved to the library, but also I have these two columns here. One called Invoice JSON. So this is where the extracted data using Flowr's Process Invoice action gets saved, and this file content column here, where the data URI format of the PDF file content gets saved. So I'm saving these two variables into the SharePoint list so that it's easy to access these within the Power App. Both of these columns are multi-lines of text. So let's have a look at the Power Automate that's populating this SharePoint library. So this is my Power Automate. And as mentioned, the trigger here is when a new email arrives. So when you're dealing with Power Automate and Outlook, if emails arrive with pictures in the email body or the email signature, Power Automate detects these as attachments. So you may have an email with only one PDF attachment come through, but if it's come from an email where there's lots of images in the email signature, Power Automate's going to think that you've got lots of attachments. So we need a way to filter through and exclude the attachments that aren't actually the PDF we want to look at. So I can loop through each of the detected attachments using an apply to each loop here. And I can then, as the first step, add this condition where I'm checking the content type of the attachment to see if it contains the word PDF. Because if the content type contains the word PDF, it means that the current attachment is a PDF document, so that means we know that we're looking at the correct detected attachment. If the content type doesn't contain PDF, we're not going to do anything, so we're going to go down the false branch and we're not going to process anything because it's not the right document. However, if it does contain PDF, we're going to go down the true branch and continue processing this attachment. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to save our attachment to our SharePoint library. So for this, I'm using the name, which is just going to be the name how it comes through from the email. You may want to provide a different name here if you want. And I'm also providing the file content, which in our case is going to be the content bytes piece of dynamic content here. So that's just going to go ahead and create the file in SharePoint. I'm then using Flowr's AI Process Invoice action. So this action, you don't need to do anything except for you need to provide the file content. And like before, we're using the content bytes for this. I then have a compose step. So the outputs of the AI Process Invoice action are in string format. So we want to go ahead and convert this into JSON. So I'm going to be using the JSON expression here, but within my JSON expression, I'm also using a replace expression. And this is because if you have any lines being used in your invoice data, so for example with addresses, if you have new lines within the address, this is going to come back from that Flowr action as a /n. So using the replace, we can just replace a /n with a space. But if you don't do this, when you look at the data through your Power App, it's going to be a /n instead of a space. So this will just ensure that that doesn't happen. The second compose is converting the file content into a URI string, because this is the format we need the file content to be in to be able to view it in the PDF viewer in the Power App. So to do this, I have a data URI expression, and within that, I just have the base 64 to binary expression, and I'm using the content bytes again because this is the file content of the document. So once we've done the formatting in our composes, we can then update the file properties back into SharePoint. So to do this, I'll be using the item ID, which is an output of our create file action that we just used. My invoice JSON will be the output of the first compose, and my file content will be the output of the second compose. So this is the Power Automate. This is how we're going to be extracting the data from our PDF and how we're going to be saving all of this into SharePoint. So now let's have a look at the app where we're going to be surfacing and viewing this data. So this is my Power app. It's a single screen canvas app. On the left-hand side, I have a gallery which is showing all of my invoices in my library. And on the right-hand side, I'll be showing my invoice details. So if I go ahead and select invoice 1, we can see on the right-hand side, all of these details have now populated. I have items that have been added to my items table, and I have this PDF viewer which has become visible, so I can actually view the PDF document within the app side by side against the AI extracted information. I also now have this icon visible to me, which allows me to collapse or re-show the PDF viewer, so I can go ahead and select a different invoice if I want to. So let's have a look at how all this is configured in the backend. So this is my gallery here, and as mentioned, it's just all connected up to my invoice SharePoint document library. And I'm showing the name of the document and the created on date and time here too. This view icon here is what's going to be selecting the current invoice. And once we've selected an invoice, because we're using a gallery, that means we actually have access to the properties of that document too. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm setting this variable called var invoice data. And what I'm doing here is I'm doing parse JSON expression on this item.invoice.json. And if you remember, invoice JSON is this big JSON with all the invoice extracted data that we've been saving here. So just important here to use a parse JSON expression, because it means we can easily get into the data so we can view it and surface it in the Power App. So the second thing I'm doing is I'm clear collecting a collection called invoice items. So if we have a look at the extracted JSON from that Flowr action, we can see we have a nested JSON called items. So we want to be able to get this into a format where we can surface this data in our table down here. And if I load up the table, we can see the items property is actually that collection, invoice items. So to get this data from that nested JSON into this collection, I'm doing a for all expression, which is essentially like an apply to each loop, however using power effects in Power Apps. So I'm looping through each item in that nested JSON, which is var invoice data, which is that parse JSON we set up here, dot items, because that's what the nested JSON is called. Within this, I can collect whatever data I want from that items row. So I'm going to be saving the product code, the quantity, the amount, and the description into my invoice items collection. When collecting these items, we need to tell Power Apps what the data type is. If you don't do this, you're going to get an untyped object error. So just make sure you wrap this in a text or a number expression. Within that, I'm then doing this record dot, in this case, product code, because that is what the JSON key is. So I'm just going ahead and doing this for all of the data I want to collect. Once we've got our invoice items collection, I'm then setting another variable called PDF file content. And for this, I just need to do this item.file content. And that is what's going to be used in our PDF viewer. So we can see here our document is PDF file content. And lastly, I'm setting this show PDF variable, so the third variable we're using in the app, to true. So show PDF is used to control whether the PDF viewer is visible or hidden, and it also controls whether the PDF icon or the collapse icon is shown. So straight away when we load up this data, show PDF is being set to true, which is why the PDF viewer becomes available. We can see the visibility of the PDF viewer has been set to show PDF. And if I look at the icon here, we can see that if show PDF is true, it's going to be the collapse icon. So if the PDF viewer is visible, the collapse icon is going to be shown so that we can close it down. However, if show PDF is not visible, it's already been collapsed, it's going to show the document PDF icon so that we can re-show the PDF document. On the onSelect property of this icon as well, if the current icon shown is the PDF, we're going to be setting show PDF to true. That's going to make the PDF viewer visible again. However, if the icon isn't document PDF, which means it would be the collapsed icon, we're going to set show PDF to false, which is then going to hide the PDF viewer. And lastly, the visibility of this icon is being dependent on whether this field contains data. Because if this field contains data, it means an invoice has been selected, which means we are going to want to show or hide the PDF viewer. However, if this field doesn't contain data, it means no invoice is selected, so there's no need to show this button. So that's why this is being set like this. These text fields here are being set using this formula here. So again, we have to tell Power Apps what the data type is. So I'm wrapping all of these in a text. Then I'm doing var invoice data, which is that variable that stores our parse JSON, dot invoice ID, because that's the JSON key of the value I want to extract. So all of these text boxes have the same formula, however the JSON key changes each time, except for this invoice amount box here, because as you'll see on the PDF viewer, there's no invoice amount on here. So this is being calculated within the app, and it's being calculated by summing all of the amounts in the invoice item collection and just formatting them into a currency format. So this is just going to sum each of the items in this amount column here. So that's the Power App. So that's how we can view our PDF documents and view them side by side with the extracted data from the AI action within the Power Automate. So let's run this end to end with a new invoice. So I've had a new invoice come in. So we can see the email that's just landed in my invoice mailbox, and we can see the invoice PDF has been attached. So let's come back to the Power App and reset our data. So we can see we now have a third invoice that's been added to the gallery, and if we click the view icon, we can see the details here. We can see it's ID number 3, and we can see that the AI extracted data matches the data on the invoice, including the 3 items that are present in the item table here too. So in the solution today, we've looked at how you can extract data from your invoice documents and then surface this data in a Power App alongside the actual PDF document so that you can validate that the data has been extracted correctly. Process Invoice isn't the only AI action that Flowr has had added recently, so if you are interested in extracting data from different document types, please do check out the other AI actions that have been added in the latest release. As always, if you have any questions about anything you've seen today, please leave me a comment down below or get in touch with us at Encodian, and as always, happy automating.